All right.
Normally my to-do list for extended days start in, well, sometimes they start in September, but they usually start in January. I'll usually do a Google Keep and think anything that I can't get done in the school year goes on a Google Keep, and it's my list of summer things. And that way I don't forget things that I wanted to accomplish. There are things that goes unnoticed by most that take a lot of time to do. For example, simply rearranging a certain section of shelves. Last summer, not this past summer, but summer before, there was a section of our collection that or it's very useful for kids, but they're not seeing it in the general. So I pulled it out and did a section called Homework Helps. And so, like, demystifying physics and English for the confused and, algebra, whatever. So these are just for those kids who are struggling. Now, yeah, I could have taken them to that section myself if they came in and asked, but a lot of times they don't. So I wanted to have a highlighted section where if they are just kind of walking around, like homework help, wonder what that is. So I don't know if it's been utilized, but that's something. But that took a lot of time to. I had to go in the catalog and re-tag them, and I had to put a sticker on them and move them, and that takes figuring out a place for it. Some may think that that's a waste of time, but the whole idea is to make things that would help students more visible.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the kinds of things you have to think about. I always do an inventory. This year was the first year I didn't do a complete inventory for extenuating circumstances, but I always like to make sure I do an inventory because sometimes an accident can happen and a student's turned in a book and it didn't get checked in right. I don't want anything on my shelves that's still checked out to a kid. So that's one of the reasons. But also, when I do that, I can see the damp, what condition the books are in because I physically look at every single one. If there are things that need to be weeded, that's when I usually those pop out to me. Like, why do we have 3 copies of such and such? And I look at the circulation statistics. How many times has it circulated? Do we need to keep this? Some things that have never circulated I keep just because, well, it's a classic and there's going to be a time when somebody's going to ask me for that. We are getting to the point where I have books on my shelf that are over 10 years old that are outdated. And but the problem is we purchased them all at the same time in 2010. So I can't get rid of all of them at the same time. So I'm kind of just picking and choosing what's the most important things to weed out and what do we keep and do I replace it, like our career section. Most of the kids don't use the career section, so do I weed everything out of that's outdated, or do I keep it just so they have something to look at? That's when you get to print and digital, that's the confusion because I looked for last year I pulled about 100 books off the shelf and went through them, and I looked for more up-to-date things, and there weren't any. Like, well, if a kid's just interested and wants to thumb through a book, do I get rid of that? So those are the questions you have to take into consideration and figure out, and it's not easy. But it takes a lot of time.